From the Stanley Cup Final in Denver, Colorado, welcome to Got Your Back, brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. You know, nobody puts in wood windows or siding anymore, so we are constantly asking you the question on this podcast, why would you build a wood fence or deck? You might as well do it once with high-quality, maintenance-free vinyl products. And my brothers Rick and Rob have tons of it at DLR Vinyl Products. They have locations in Calgary and in Edmonton. For the folks in Edmonton, when the rain stops, if you've been stuck inside and you need a project, why not bang in a brand new maintenance-free vinyl deck or fence? I've got lots of them in my backyard, and I highly recommend it. Oh, it's like a reunion podcast, fellas. It feels like it's been months and months. TRyan and Jason Strudwick. I don't know. It's been like a week or week and a half or something, fellas. TR, how you doing out there on the East Coast?
I'm doing great. I'm having an awesome time. My daughter graduated from grade 6 yesterday, as everybody does, but it's a good, nice little rite of passage in a small town. They all hang out together. They play their sports together. They're at school. It was nice to see. It was a little sense of accomplishment, even though no one fails anymore. Let's be honest. When I was in grade 6, there was like 14 people from grade 7 and 8 that should have been, but it didn't matter. There was failing. That doesn't happen anymore. So it's not so much of an accomplishment as a rite of passage.
Nice. Yeah, it's been weird. The Oilers they were eliminated from the playoffs around the same time my kids' hockey ended. So I went from hockey all the time and watching it, playing all that stuff, to all of a sudden nothing. So my lawn looks amazing. I probably could work at Augusta if things don't turn out well.
You pay somebody to do your lawn. You don't do your own lawn.
No. My grandpa would be rolling over in his grave if I knew I paid someone. I'm out there grinding it out, but it looks good. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but it is really impressive.
How bad has the weather been, Struddy? I've been out here in Denver. It's like 33 degrees every day. It's beautiful. The sun is shining, and I'm getting pictures from back home. Like Randine is sending me pictures. It's like the apocalypse.
It's been a steady rain. Like it's a long, steady rain the last 2 days, but today looks pretty good. So hopefully we'll get out there and enjoy the outdoors. But yeah, it's been great. Every day it says forecast till next Monday in the rain. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
wow, we got sun all week. What a bizarro world that is.
Yeah, my son's working out at Kananaskis right now at the golf course, and he sent me some pictures out there too. They've had in the mountains. It's a whole different kettle of fish out there, boy. So everybody stay safe. Hopefully it dries up and we can all get golfing again soon. Okay, boys. So I am here in Denver. I was there for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final last night. I don't know that I've covered a Stanley Cup Final this highly anticipated in a really, really long time. We're going to get to the breakdown here, brought to you by Park Mazda, where the newly redesigned 2022 CX-5 has arrived. You can check out the brand new all-wheel drive sport design trim with its turbocharged engine and see all the available colors and trims in stock, everything you need. Go visit parkmazda.ca, or better yet, head on down to the lot. It's a great crew, great sales staff. I love it down there. We've been doing business together for years. And Park Mazda definitely has your back for anything you need when it comes to vehicles. So anticipated this series, you guys. Maybe just a quick headline. Struddy, did it live up to the hype, do you think?
I think it did. Yeah, there's a lot of skill on both sides. And I was so excited to see McKinnon versus Hedman. And we saw basically the first shift, a one-on-one. Now McKinnon loses the handle, but Hedman, I love the D-man in me season, and he didn't flinch. He stayed with him step for step. I'm not suggesting he owned him all night, but that's what you want to see. It's in hockey. It's harder to have those one-on-one matchups you might see in basketball or football, but when you do get them, man, TR, it's special.
Yeah, I love the pace. They came out going at each other. I didn't really know what to expect. With so much anticipation, often it's games that are anticipated often turn out mediocre, to say the least. But that I thought had a great energy. The fans make it for me as well down there. It's a real home ice advantage. A lot of things happened that were expected as well. Tampa didn't go away, even at the beginning of the game when it looked like two teams from two different leagues. Tampa came back, showed what they got, the best players, I thought, at most. They showed exactly what they had. It was two of the best teams in the NHL coming at each other head on, and it went into overtime. I had it, too. I picked it.
Did you? You picked the winner in OT, or you picked that it would be a Colorado win in OT?
I picked.
And is there any proof of this?
Right. Yeah, everything I picked was right. It was $5 pro line. I got like 300 from it. It was
oh, jeez.
Yeah, I had the Colorado in overtime.
Wow.
And a bunch of like shots over unders.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So I mean, not that I'm Nostradamus. I lost 3 times before that, but I'm saying that looking at the game, there's a lot of things. I thought it'd be close, right? 2 of the best teams in the NHL thought it'd be close. Makar, I knew would get a lot of shots. McKinnon, these are no-brainer bets, but I just happened to come up on top.
I thought, Struddy, that was just a fantastic first period from the Colorado Avalanche because, I really wondered how they would do in meeting the moment, right? It's the Stanley Cup final. You're going to be a little bit more nervous. A lot of their guys hadn't really been there before. You're staring down the barrel of the 2-time defending champions. There was a lot, there were a lot of reasons for them to come out and be jittery in that first period. And instead, what they did is they came out, they controlled a lot of the play. They had a brilliant penalty kill, a really good penalty kill that then immediately turned into a 5-on-5 goal at the other end. Their D get jumping up into the rush. They're overwhelming Tampa. They score another 5-on-5 goal. And then, albeit with some help from the refs, they get a power play goal. So you've now put 3 past Vasilevsky in the first period when Vasilevsky was like larger than life before this series started.
I think that for Colorado, they know they're a good team. But they haven't played anyone like Tampa yet. So you think you're a good team, you're going to go out and find out. And so you're playing with them. And then all of a sudden you realize like, oh, we can play at these guys. We are as good as we think we are. Right. And I think that's a big moment for them. And to get to win last night, especially when Tampa came back, is huge. But there were some nice moments in there. Tampa's a smart team. They're not going to go away easily. They score those 2 goals in 48 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're a veteran team. So for Colorado to weather that storm, the storm being the 2 goals, and then come back and win that in overtime on kind of a nice goal by Burakovsky, like it's a big moment because I honestly thought when Kucherov did what he did, I love that. I mean, TR, you love that cross and drop at the blue line. And then Kucherov goes around Taves and backdoor tap in for Palat. I mean, that is just, I was like, oh no, this is not a good sign. Cause all of a sudden, hey, Kucherov is back, right? He's in the series. So I love that play, but I love that they withstood it, right? And kept it going. So, you think you're good, then you find out you are good, and then you prove you are good by winning that game.
I thought as well, some of the depth players stepped up. I got to mention Alex Newhook, guys. I got to do it. He's in the Stanley Cup final.
No, we're editing that out. We can't do it every podcast.
I know I'm biased, but that's kind of where my heart is because there's only been 2 Newfoundland players ever win the Stanley Cup. Danny Cleary was the first, if you can believe it. Players, I'm sure there's been. Right. Derek Clancy was a scout. I mean, and Michael Ryder. So we're all watching, and Alex is. But to get back to it, Alex, for example, for me, you're in a Stanley Cup final. You're a young player. I forget the guy who set up the winner. Nikushin, is that his name?
Nikushkin, yeah, really good game.
He had a great game. Like he did so many things. And for years, I've been watching him. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was a first rounder that really wasn't. I know how that goes. Wasn't living up to his potential. Yeah, exactly. And last night he looked like a first round pick to me. And I didn't realize he had 20 odd goals this year. He had a breakout year. I thought he played great. It was for me. Players like that you're not thinking, McKinnon's on stage, Makar's on stage, all the Kucherov, Stamkos. But if I'm out there and I'm Newhook, for example, I'm real nervous, no matter if I like it or not. But I thought those players played, the bit players that need to chip in and do their job. I thought a lot of them did it. I thought it was great hockey for the most part.
I agree. I agree. Struds, I love the point you made about Colorado not going away, because I have to tell you, like that building was rocking last night, you guys, and they were singing and it was fun. And it was, everybody was on their feet. And when Tampa did what they did, the team did a lot better reacting than the crowd did. That crowd buckled after those 2 goals. Holy smokes. You could have heard a pin drop in that place. So the nervous energy in that building from that crowd right after that, I'm sitting there going, oh boy. And especially because of the way they did it. That play from Kucherov, that's a basic 2-on-2. And correct me if I'm wrong, Struddy, but when you're a D-man and you're defending a 2-on-2 and your guys crisscross, maintain your lane, switch guys, and Cale Makar was the one that made the mistake. Their all-world defenseman is the one who got looking at the other guy, trying to do the other guy's job, and got backdoored. And the crowd was just like, and then the other one goes in and it's like, holy smokes. Okay. That's why they're the 2-time champions.
Yeah.
And the team did a much better job of hanging in there than I thought the crowd did, because it was nervous times in there.
Yeah, it was, and if you're from the other side, from Tampa's side, I think you're actually feeling pretty good about what went on. I thought the first goal that Rampton, the shot kind of trickles through Vasilevsky, then Landeskog taps in a 6-incher. Not a great goal. Like that's from what I've seen, un-Vasilevsky. Like,
yeah, there was 2 of them like that. Hey,
yeah. Well, the other one was. Are you talking about the second? Wasn't that tipped? I thought that was
the shot from the shot from the high slot.
Yeah, wasn't it kind of redirected?
Was it? Maybe. I didn't have a great replay monitor, so
yeah, I thought it was. I might be wrong. I thought it was redirected, but anyway. But the first goal for sure, like that's one that you're not used to seeing. So you're like, and I'm not blaming the pinning the loss on Vasilevsky, but Tampa's like, listen, we lost in overtime. We got back in this game. We know our goalie's going to lock it down tighter than that. So I think that Tampa should be feeling pretty good about themselves. Like there's nothing to be ashamed of in that game as far as thinking, oh man, we can't play at these guys.
I agree. I think whatever the game plan was going in, you don't need to second guess yourself, but both teams, I think, got what they expected to an extent. As far as the crowd, I tell you this, man, Ryan, I picked up on that too. Like, I couldn't believe how different the crowd, it was almost
it was
like
palpable.
I want to record that and show it at hockey schools when I talk about momentum, right? And when honestly, that it was such, like, back in the day, like, that's to me what a fight should do. Like, not to get into fight. There was no fights in the way. I'm saying is like that kind of thing is where it's like, that's what a lot of like a big hit, a fight, 2 quick goals. That's momentum, and you can see it. And a lot of people don't analyze the game, and they don't realize, or they don't give credit to certain things that aren't tangible, like momentum or like leadership in a room. Like, but when you see Corey Perry do what he does, or when you see that last night with your own eyes, you can't deny it. And I thought, well, I think Tampa is one of the best teams, not in the NHL now, but that I've seen in recent history. Watching, you're following along, and it happens so much. They're down, but they don't fold. You're not always going to come back, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. Grab your nuts, you give your balls a tug, so to speak, as they would say on my show, Shorzy, tune in, Craven Hulu. But yeah, that and I think that they do that more than anybody. They do it great. It's like they're almost better when they're down by 2.
Yeah. Struds, one of the big storylines heading in was, I mean, you said it, right? Like, the Avalanche haven't seen a team like Tampa, or one of you said it, but it was so funny on media day because both teams were saying the same thing about each other. And there was so much respect. Like, Tampa was saying, no, we haven't seen a team like them before, but they haven't seen a team like us. And then you go talk to Colorado and they're like, 2-time defending champions. Like, I was talking to Devon Taves before the series started, and I said, they have all this experience. They got 5 guys that haven't won the cup over there. Well, how do you counter experience? And he goes, they haven't seen us. Like, it was a constant refrain that they said. And it was really interesting to watch both of those teams get a feel for one another last night. And what I noticed, Struds, is that the Tampa Bay Lightning, like we saw with the Edmonton Oilers, they were overwhelmed by the sheer power and speed that the Avalanche play that game with. They play with so much speed and so much power. It's beyond Nathan MacKinnon. And I thought that they were overwhelmed early on in that game. They ended up adjusting, but if Colorado can continue to bring that level of pacing to the game, I think it's a huge advantage for them, because they're just going to generate the volume of chances they're going to need against Vasilevsky if they play at that pace.
Yeah, I mean, the tip of the spear is MacKinnon, right? He's so powerful and fast. But what we saw in the Oilers series was the ability of the Avs forwards to get on the Oilers D before they were even had a chance to make a look at play. Like, it's one thing to get the puck, take a look, and then get hit after you make the play. It's another to get the puck and get hit at the same time, or be pressured at the same time. And I think to start the game, the Tampa wasn't ready for that kind of pressure. But this group of D is pretty smart. They're like, Hedman is world class. He's going to figure it out. And I thought his ability to move the puck got better as the game went on. You go through McDonough. He kind of starts that breakout that leads to the Kucherov goal. But doesn't start. He makes a great play to break out. Like, these guys will figure it out. So it won't be quite as easy. But for the Avs, they have to continue to put pressure. Like, it's even the best players in the world need a little bit of time to make plays, TRyan. For the D, if they keep that pressure up, you're right, they will get they will get more chances than Tampa's going to get.
Well, the thing is, there's so many big time players in this series that like someone's going to make a mistake. Like, like Hedman's doesn't usually make two in the first period, but I'm saying Makar, McKinnon, Kucherov, Stamkos, these guys aren't known for their mistakes, but it's not going to be 0-0, right? Vasilevsky's not known for mistakes, but those were, I thought they were two average goals at best. So, the reality of it is that that's going to happen. So I don't think you can go into it, relying on every single, because there's just too many. So there's going to be mistakes made. That being said, okay. As far as the goaltending, I have a question, a ponderable. So if you were to look at last night's game in a box, what would you think of the goaltending?
They got enough chances on Vasilevsky to get enough by him, and Kemper didn't blow it for them.
So if you were looking from afar, and I know I don't want to go too off topic, but I want to make a point.
Well, it's your podcast, bud. Whatever you want.
We'll talk about it today as with Jordan Nolan on Tales with TR. You're next week too, by the way, Struds. You're not going to be any longer.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, finally. Sure.
Yeah. Finally, yes.
Oh, I lost my phone, TR. Sorry, I was cutting the grass.
But when you're looking back, when you're looking back, say the series that the Edmonton Colorado series, the Edmonton Calgary series, sorry, and these. If you're a long time in the future, you're going to look back and say, well, of course McDavid had all those points because the goalies sucked. I just thought it was like we look back at the 80s and no one ever looks at Grant Fuhr getting a shutout. They always look back and say, well, the goalies sucked. That's why every single person. Well, I think in these particular playoffs, there's a lot of shit goals going in. But when you look back, you're going to see those on Vasilevsky rather than all the lights out plays that he made so I just thought it was something. One of my listeners of Tales with TR brought that up. So it's as much a comment on how we view the past as it is when I'm looking at these particular goals. Like last night, it was an example of one of those great players having a flaw. I mean, that wasn't real Vasilevsky. We haven't seen that yet, but we also haven't seen McKinnon and Makar either,
Yeah, for sure. Struddy, we might have to charge him for coming on our podcast, all these plugs he's doing, these free plugs that he's by the way, Jason,
I thought that was a great question that I was asked and I never
no, it was. You brought it around, man. Sometimes you'll get off the beaten path, and Struddy and I sit here and we both start sweating a little bit. We're like, is he going to bring this around? Where the hell are we going with this shit? But you brought it back around, TR.
I did.
It's good.
Just barely, but I did.
Ryan Rishaug from Sports Center, Jason Strudwick from the Jason Dreger show with Jason Strudwick, and TRyan from all the stuff you've already heard here on Got Your Back podcast as we do our little plug segment brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products, among others. Braden Point, I thought he skated pretty well. I thought that they used him carefully. I mean, that's not where he belongs in the lineup. That guy belongs a hell of a lot higher up in the lineup, and I believe he will get there. Pierre LeBrun made the point last night as we were doing our hit. He really believes that, and he's covered these Stanley Cup finals. He's seen this guy come through and be clutch. Struddy, this guy will be checking into the series in a different way as he gets healthier and more confident. And this is a difference maker that was buried a little bit last night.
It's a knee, right? It was his knee.
Well, we were told lower. I don't know if we actually knew, but sure.
Okay, so let's just say it was a knee. And both TR and I've had knee injuries before, and I couldn't imagine trying to come back after missing 3 rounds or whatever, the last 2 rounds, essentially, jump into the Stanley Cup final, the speed, the physicality. And the biggest thing, even if it's an ankle or knee, whatever, you don't know. You're like, how's this going to feel? How's this going to react? And I was watching for how he skated. I thought he skated great. I honestly thought he was moving. He engaged. Sometimes when you're unsure of a body part, if it's going to explode on you when you hit someone, I thought he engaged. So yeah, he's a monster player. That guy, for such a young player, he's played so many playoff games. I would move him up the lineup pretty damn quick, just to kind of reinforce him, especially with Kadri out. And I don't know that we really saw a huge effect of that last night without Kadri, but if you're able to put Point up there higher, I think you can see that effect, because Kadri, I know a lot of people hate him, some people love him. I think he's a terrific hockey player.
Oh, he's fantastic.
And it's a lot different lineup without him in there. Not that they can't win the Stanley Cup without him, but if Braden Point gets going, it creates a massive problem for the Avs, because there's no Kadri is the perfect anti-Point, and they don't have him. And even if he does come back, I'm not sure he's going to look like.
Yeah, TR, this Tampa team, this is in all their game ones now. They've had 4 of them. They've lost 3 of them. Like, they are not a team that has been showing up on time to series. But I think if you look at the way they finished the regular season, right? Putt, 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 putt into the playoffs, and then boom, they're kind of a veteran team that I have a feeling they're going to wake up in plenty of time to assert themselves in this series. It's just, they just know how to do it. They can pull a 180 like that.
2 points and 3 mini points within the second point. The first point is that I think you could call them a comeback team. I think you could say that, right? You could comfortably say that the Tampa Bay Lightning are the best team until they lose, but they're a comeback team would be one of their tags. That's the first point. The second one, talking about Braden Point, no pun intended, is 3 things about that guy. First of all, I'd rather have Braden Point at 50%, given what he's done in the playoffs, than a player who's above average at 100%. He's just proven it. Not only play-wise, but his whole team. If I'm playing, especially if I'm one of those guys without a Stanley Cup on Tampa Bay, and I'm looking at this absolute clutch beast of a performer that always steps it up in the playoffs, it makes me feel a whole lot better. I don't care if he gets 2 shifts. I don't care. I think Stamkos had something to do with the Cup 2 years ago when he only played 1 shift and scored a goal. It's still energy, momentum, everything else. And the last part about him playing is that if I'm on the other team, I was always like, you can try to get under team skin, but sometimes you're playing and a guy's hurt and you're like, Jesus, like, I'm not saying it intimidates you, but you're almost like, my God, like it's a level of, when you're squeezing your stick. You should know about this, Ryan. You're squeezing your stick. You're not scoring a lot. You haven't scored in 10 or 11. And it's like everything, the puck's not going to go in. It doesn't, like, you could have an empty net, but you're going to fall. Like, it's that. And you're like, man, nothing can stop these guys, and they've got that reputation too, not just a comeback, but like Kucherov last year, is he out for the playoffs? Oh no, he's going to challenge for the Conn Smythe. It's just like, they don't seem like they're almost down, but they're not. And for me, that's a huge statement, just having them there.
Is that how you felt in Game 5 when we were beating you guys and you couldn't score? And I already had one in the bag, and I don't know if you got one in the series.
This is a true story. I must have scored in the series. Just the law of averages says so. But I signed my NHL contract.
I'm checking while you're talking.
Contract that week. And how did registration for, was it UBC or the community college?
It was nowhere. I literally stopped playing. That's how good I was. I'm done now.
Hey, win a battle, win a war, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Hey guys, that was a great breakdown, and that breakdown was brought to you by Park Mazda, where the newly redesigned 2022 CX-5 has arrived. Check out the available colors and trims in stock at parkmazda.ca. This was fun, guys. Thanks, TR. Will you come back and join us? I'm not sure when we'll drop our next one, but when we do, I'll shoot you a text, and if you got time, come back.
For sure. I always love to be here. Guys, how about this? Who I'm going out with? I don't know. One of you or both of you must have come across him, but gave me a call yesterday, and he told me 4 months ago he was coming to town. I forgot. The great Ryan Vandenbush. I never played with him. He knocked me out in Chicago one time, actually, but he's a good friend, and he's coming to visit. He's taking his sister over and her and his brother-in-law, and we're going to tour. I'm showing him Cape Spear and Signal Hill, and we're going to have a great weekend hiking and the like.
You're not by chance going to get him on the podcast, are you? What's the name of your podcast again?
It's called Tales with Teaser, and he's already been on there. If you haven't, and that proves to me you don't listen. This is bull crap. I want out of this.
I listen.
I'm kidding. By the way, I'm kidding, and I don't expect you to. There's so many outlets. More and more people we know now have podcasts and platforms and books. Guys, I really mean it. Once in a while, check in. Keep me honest, but do not think that I expect you to listen to all my podcasts. But it's called Tales with TR, and it's doing quite well right now since the release of Shoresy on Craven Hulu. And Tales of the First Round Nothing, of course.
Seriously, get out of here. You owe me money today. There's no 100%. Money coming for you today, my friend. That's TRyan. Now, more to come with Struds here on Got Your Back, presented by DLR Vinyl Products.
Hey, Struddy, question for you. Have you ever tried putting in your own fence?
I sure have. Between digging the posts, mixing up cement and digging the holes is absolute killer.
It's brutal on the back. Well, listen, what if I told you you could put in a fence without having to dig a hole or mix any concrete?
I'd be much more likely to come over and help you out.
Yeah, well, you're not the first guy I would call, but thank you for that. Listen, my brother's company, DLR Vinyl Products, they've come up with a system where you can actually put high-quality vinyl fence in the ground without having to dig a hole, without having to mix any concrete. They can teach do-it-yourselfers how to do it, and they can also work with contractors who might be looking to start installing vinyl. It's super high-quality product. The great thing about it is that it has fantastic longevity. You put it in, you don't have to worry about staining or sanding or anything like that. I've been lucky enough, Struddy. They've put in multiple fences in my different yards and they've built me 3 decks. I have totally abused the fact that my family is in the fencing and decking business, but it's great product. Give Rob a call in Calgary or Rick a call here in Edmonton. This is a company my dad started. It's a family business. I'm super proud of it, and I'm very proud that they are our title sponsors. That's DLR Vinyl Products in Edmonton and Calgary.
Hey, it's Ryan Rishaug. While many are feeling the sting of inventory shortages, Park Mazda has you covered. They've got new Mazdas arriving every month, including the redesigned 22 CX-5 in whatever color you're looking for. They've also got a huge selection of used vehicles with new arrivals every week and some of the most competitive interest rates on cars, trucks, SUVs, and more. Park Mazda, your dealer for life in Sherwood Park, off Y Road. Schedule a test drive at parkmazda.ca.
Time now for Duffy and Dregs, brought to you by Belvan Construction, specializing in the design, planning, and construction of restaurants, office spaces, professional clinics, and retail spaces. If you have any commercial, construction, or renovation needs, visit belvanconstruction.com. James Duffy on vacation today. Jason Strudwick sitting in. Dregsy, how you doing, pal?
I'm doing well, but are you sure that James Duffy is on vacation? So
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here.
Okay, you got to be careful with that kind of stuff because James has a lot going on in his world, right? Like he could be anywhere. He could be attending to family. He could be negotiating his next contract. He could be doing just about anything. Maybe he's on vacation. Most likely is he's golfing. So I guess that is part of.
If people could see the text chain that he and I are on trying to wrangle you two for this podcast.
Well, hold on a sec. It's not wrangle you two. How many times have I said, no, I'm unavailable?
You've been very consistent. I meant more James. Like, yes, I love his response yesterday. He said, so I said to you guys, looking at like whatever time tomorrow, he goes, more than likely I'm unable. I'll know later tonight. So like, what's going on in his world that he doesn't know if he's available at 7:30 the next or 8:30 the next morning?
We're boring Struddy with all this, but to give you an example, so I'm in studio last night with Noodles to do pregame and postgame of game one. Duffy isn't there for pregame. Gino Retta hosts the segment, which is fine. Gino's quality. He's an old pro. Duffy gets there at about, 10 p.m., like 10:15. We're like, what's going on? Like something interfering with the Stanley Cup final? In fairness, his son Jared had his graduation from Guelph University. Oh, look, dad duty does trump the Stanley Cup final when you're not at the Stanley Cup final, like you obviously are.
Yep. Struddy's got a beef. He's got something he needs to ask you about, Dregs. We'll get to the Stanley Cup final in a minute. We just finised breaking it down, but he is some kind of pissed.
It does.
If it has anything to do with banana bread, I don't want to hear it.
Don't get me started on banana bread. I'm saving that. That just fires me up too. But anyways, we heard Gary Bettman, his pregame chat about the series, and it was released that Evander Kane and that whole situation with the Sharks, it might not be resolved in time for January or whatever, free agency day.
Yeah,
13th.
I did, Dregs. I got to tell you, like I'm a pretty calm guy, but everyone knows the implications this has for the player, for the agent, for the teams involved, the league, the way it looks. How can they not say to the arbitrator, whoever is in charge of this thing, saying, hey, the drop dead date is June, whatever, pick a date. Like it's crazy. It does not make any, and it could gum up a lot of things for a lot of teams. And most importantly, Evander Kane, the player, it's unacceptable, Dregs. It's unacceptable.
Well, look, doesn't it reduce a multi-billion-dollar industry, which National Hockey League is, down to common folk? I mean,
Crazy.
if the three of us have legal issues, right? Okay, well, maybe we're not the top of the docket. So they're going to push it back and there's a backlog. So you get pushed back further and further. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking
100%.
about tens of millions of dollars. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, well, okay, I can appreciate why Commissioner Bettman isn't too annoyed, if that's even fair to say, about a process like this. But what about Ken Holland and the Edmonton Oilers? Why isn't the Players Association, the NHLPA, just screaming from the mountaintops as to how can this possibly be? Yeah. Because you're talking about $23 million, and there's no way. I mean, even to Evander Kane, who's, it's been well documented, the financial issues and whatnot that he's been challenged with over his time in the National Hockey League. $23 million is a game changer. And there's no doubt in my mind that would influence whatever his next decision is. If he was such a great fit with the Edmonton Oilers, is it conceivable that maybe he takes a year less, maybe leaves a little bit of money on the table because he was such a good fit there? I'm with you. I don't understand it, other than the fact that in our lives, this kind of stuff happens, especially in pandemic. But I'm a bit surprised that there hasn't been more negative reaction from the primary pieces, the parties here, including the NHLPA and maybe the Oilers.
And just some points of clarification here. We stuck around after the press conference. Dregs, this as often happens, and chatted with Bill Daly a little bit. So the NHL's view on this is that, it was a fair termination and that Evander Kane is a free agent until they're told otherwise. And that's why this process is happening. So as far as the NHL is concerned, Evander Kane's a free agent and he's free to sign a deal either with the Oilers now or with another team on the 13th. So Struds, if this doesn't get resolved by the 13th, it doesn't mean that Evander Kane in the meantime can't work out a deal with the Oilers and that on the 13th, he can't go out and sign a free agent deal. But what happens is if he wins the arbitration case, that's them flat out wins it. That's essentially them saying, you're right. They shouldn't have terminated your contract. Congratulations. You're a San Jose Shark again. And then he goes back into San Jose's property. And I will remind everybody, so too do his trade stipulations. And he's got some lists and stuff that he can throw in, some teams and stuff like that. So that happens and he becomes a member of the San Jose Sharks again. If it's a settlement, and I believe there's a real good chance this will end up in a settlement, because if it's going to go that way, the San Jose Sharks can then pay them as much money as they can based on the room they had in their cap last year, and then spread the rest out over a few years on their cap. I think it just makes some sense.
But what does that settlement look like? What does that look like? If worst case scenario is $20+ million, your lawyers better be really damn good. Right? Because where's the saw off there? Is Evander Kane going to be okay with 10 million? I don't know. Probably not. He feels like he's owed the guaranteed contract, which he fairly negotiated with the San Jose Sharks, no different than any other player.
Yeah. But the benefit the benefit from the two sides in a settlement is this. One, San Jose can give them a big chunk of change up front that would have been on their cap this year, and then they can spread the cap hit and the money out over as many years as they decide. Now, the NHL may have some say in that. The benefit for Evander Kane, Dregs, is that then he just is the free agent, right? He doesn't have to go through that process of becoming a Shark again, and where's he going to go and what happens to his rights and all those sorts of things. But 2 points on Kane, Struddy. I don't think Evander Kane is taking a penny less than the absolute most money he can get somewhere.
Agreed.
I don't think there's a discount to stay. How I think there'd be a discount to stay in Edmonton if they gave him the 8th year. I think they believe there is a massive contract sitting there waiting for them, that he believes he's hit the home run, that there's been vindication in a lot of ways. This wouldn't surprise me if they feel there's a 6-year deal at $7-8 million available to them out there. I don't know that I agree, but I think that might be where their headspace is, Struds.
Yeah, well, I think the player on the ice has earned that. You look at what he's done this year. He used the Oilers, and the Oilers used him, and that's the way the market works, right? That's what you want. But the off ice is where my arms might get a little bit twitchy before I sign a contract that if I'm a team. So how this plays out is going to be really interesting for Kane, because I agree. If you've had some money troubles, you want to get as much as you can back and get your life on track for, let's say, 10 years from now when you're not playing anymore.
Greg's, what's your sense of the interest level? And you believe that there are teams out there that could potentially go 5, 6, 7 years with this guy?
I mean, that's the stretch to me, Ryan, to be fair. How old is Evander Kane right now?
He'll be 31, playing at 31 next season, I believe.
Right. I haven't, in fairness, full disclosure, it's not like I pulled 31 other teams here to say, okay, what's your interest? Now, when you look at the hockey player, we can build a case as to why every team would have interest in Evander Kane. He provides a very specific and frankly, a somewhat unique skill set in everything that he can do. I haven't, again, without polling all teams, I haven't come across a team that's willing to go beyond 3 years. Now, that's not to say, and you know how this market goes every single summer. It's the same thing. We in the media build up a case for player X as the most coveted unrestricted free agent. And, that player hits the home run and maybe there's term that you just weren't expecting. That could very well be the case. I'd be surprised if there are more than a couple or a few teams that are interested in going beyond 4 or 5 years. If
you look at things from, let's completely take the position here of Evander Kane's camp or Evander Kane. So you're sitting here, you absolutely blew the doors off the situation in Edmonton. It was fantastic on and off the ice. I'm told that off the ice, everything was great. There were no issues whatsoever, blended well with the guys, right? Yeah. So he holds up his end of the bargain. If he ends up settling favorably or winning with San Jose, now there's further vindication of, I wasn't treated fairly here. I'm the one that wasn't treated fairly. He did what he was supposed to do in Edmonton. You look at the situation that's happening in Winnipeg to a degree. And if you're Evander Kane years later, you're going, I had trouble in that dressing room because, you guys, everybody's sort of seeing and hearing things now about why maybe it wouldn't have gone great for me there. Evander Kane's not a guy that'll go quietly in situations where maybe he doesn't like people. If you say, well, what happened in San Jose? You hear about, 2 or 3 teammates that didn't like him. His response might be, well, ask me what I think of them. I didn't like them. And maybe it's because, so I think there's this level of vindication here with Evander Kane as each step of the way comes and goes that I think has them feeling like they, in a lot of ways, will have been vindicated. And all of this, where there's smoke, there's fire stuff. I'm not sure that, this was not the Evander Kane apology tour, Dregs. I don't think that's the way they have viewed it at all.
Do you buy it, Struddy? I mean, I understand it and I get it, but we're not talking about one situation here, right? I mean, it's basically everywhere except Edmonton. And that's just, pulling the curtain back a little bit. I still believe that his best fit and most likely longer term is in Edmonton. And I've said this, I think, on the podcast before. Does Kenny Holland care if he gives him a 5-6 year term? Kenny Holland's not going to be around in Edmonton for the next 5 years. He'll be golfing in Vernon 6 times a week. I mean, at the end of the day, he looks at what Evander Kane has brought to Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. That matters to him now because they just made it to the Western Conference Final, and he can probably see how Kane is going to be a good fit in his quest to win a Stanley Cup in the next few years. But beyond that, I mean, you're right, Ryan. I look, everything you've said is accurate, but unfortunately for Evander, there are long memories, not short memories. There are long memories across the league.
And remember, I was taking the perspective of if you're them from their camp. I'm not saying I necessarily believe every ounce of that, but that might be the perspective there, Struds.
Yeah. Well, 2 things. One, I said it when he signed. You're not going to irritate yourself out of a dressing room in 2 or 3 months. It's impossible because there's a settling in period. Then by the time guys get to know you, then you're in the playoffs and you're winning. Everything's great. Even the person you hate the most, you're happy to sit beside at a game because you're winning, right? Like that's just the way it kind of sorts out. But when I look at Evander Kane, I don't believe there's another player in the NHL that could have done to Matthew Tkachuk what Evander Kane did in that series. He was invisible, absolutely invisible. And I'll bring up a play. The game, I believe, if I remember correctly, was the game that Kane had the hat trick. I was in the building. He scores a hat trick, and either that shift or the next shift, he skates out. I believe it was that shift. He skates out to line up at center. And he slashes Tkachuk on the leg. So he just scored a goal, and he goes out and slashes him to line up at center. Tkachuk's just like, what's going on here? Like, he had no idea, had no answer for it. Yeah. And he faded out of that series like so quickly. So if you're the Oilers, I'm looking at that. Like, that guy is a major pest now. I don't know what his future is with Calgary, and that's more of a Dregs. But honestly, in that series, he single-handedly put that guy out of the series. And so I would definitely be looking to sign him. I'm not sure if I can go past 3 years with him if I'm the Oilers, but I think I go back to my original point. Without knowing the results of this arbitrary arbitration system or hearing, to me, it's crazy, guys. It's crazy. How does the team make an informed decision?
Yeah. A couple of other notes from Bettman yesterday, Dregs. World Cup in 24. I think fans can probably start to feel excited about a best on best situation and finally a chance to see some of these guys as teammates. Sounds like they want the tournament to be in February, though.
Yeah, that's been the plan all along. The Players Association is on board with this. I mean, this is just what happens when you get into a high-level grind negotiation with all parties, including the IIHF. I, for one, am a bit surprised that they haven't put this thing to bed already. I mean, there was talk of a play-in tournament at some point that would deal only with the European teams, right? Just to make it balanced and fair with the federations over there. It's a sign of better times and good health. That's really what it's about. I don't think that there's any doubt it'll be in February of 2024. But again, why they're dragging their feet is just probably the legal negotiations that have to happen at this stage.
And what about the league revenue? They said it was around 5.2 billion. Is that? And I thought they said that, and then also conservative. So what does that mean as far as where the league is in recovery or relation to the recovery of COVID?
It's headed in the right direction. It's getting better, and you're not going to get anything other than positivity out of the commissioner's office of the National Hockey League at this point. And in saying that, there's balance too, right? Because during the pandemic, I'm trying to think of which meeting it was, where Bettman and Daly talked about how the system would be whole and the payback of the players is going to happen way sooner than what anybody was projecting. And then like 10 days later, all hell breaks loose with COVID-19. And this was already in the pandemic. And by hell breaking loose, it hit the National Hockey League. And basically all 32 teams had to deal with it. So they're in a better place now than I think what they were projecting. And the flip part to that too, Struddy, is the fact that Bettman acknowledged that they're getting back onto the normal calendar next year with the opening of the regular season on October.
Thank goodness.
11th. Thank goodness for everybody.
Oh man!
But that is a pretty clear indicator of everything tracking back in the right direction. So the players are still going to feel the pain with escrow and all of that, but at least there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Is it 3 years? Is it 4 years? I'm not sure the commissioner detailed that specifically or not.
So the one where LeBron and I sort of looked at each other during the press conference and went, was when they were talking about this, this cap loophole, this LTIR loophole. And Dregs, you've been at all the meetings recently where it's like, you guys came out of that last meeting and there was inertia, right? This is a Kenny Holland initiative and close up these loopholes and don't allow teams to hide players, on LTIR and then bring them back magically for the playoffs and all that. Well, Bill Daly just absolutely stomped on that ant yesterday. I think his quote was they aren't using any loopholes. They aren't using any loopholes. They're using good cap management. So, inertia just completely stopped on that front.
Yeah, for now, right? But never lose sight of the reality. It's a fact that Bill Daly and Gary Bettman work for the owners of the National Hockey League. So, based on what they said yesterday, I wonder if there's going to be an owner or owners at the Board of Governors meetings, which are today in Denver, who follow up on that to say, wait a second here.
Exactly.
I think of the St. Louis Blues. I think of some of the smaller market owners where they can't bury money like that. They don't have the luxury of doing that. Now, most of it is covered by insurance, obviously. But it is a convenient way around the salary cap. And when you get entrusted guys like Kenny Holland, and it wasn't like there was 3 or 4 general managers who brought this to the table for discussion of GM's meetings. I mean, there were like 10 or 12. That's a lot. So I was a bit surprised too that Daly said it as bluntly that it was a dead issue. I would add for now. I don't think this is going away because it's going to happen again. It happens repeatedly on an annual basis. So it's a dead issue for now. But if the owners want it to be resolved or revisited, then the commissioner's office has no choice.
Right on. Good stuff. Dregs, appreciate your time, buddy. I know what were you heading out to walk the dog or something? I just got you last minute for the podcast today. Where were you going?
No, I was going for a walk. See, this is how my world works. I walk by myself and I've got a dog walker who comes and actually, that's what happened.
You make too much money. This is ridiculous.
I knocked the microphone over because Alex, the dog walker, just showed up. Tiny was sitting there like ready to roll.
Yeah. You probably hire someone to walk you. So you have someone to walk your dog and someone to walk you.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Listen, look at you. You're going to Google it. You're going to Google it. Poodle walkers.
Idea.
They're called poodle walkers. Yeah, they do it. It's a thing. It's a business, Dregs.
Oh, well, in that case, you should add it to your portfolio. I mean, you're trying to dive into every market across North America. How about Rishaug's people walking? That would work.
Yeah, exactly.
While doing the podcast.
Well, dude, all right.
Brought to you by Belvan.
Didn't miss you at all, buddy. This was Struddy and Dregs, brought to you by Belvan Construction. They specialize in the design, planning, and construction of restaurants, office spaces, professional clinics, and retail spaces. Visit belvanconstruction.com. We'll check in with you next week, fellas. Struds, thanks, man. We'll talk to you guys soon.
You got it. Have a good walk.
Plenty more to come here on Got Your Back, presented by DLR Vinyl Products.
If you're a business owner looking for a general contractor to build or renovate your business, no matter how big or small, Belvan Construction should be your first call. Specializing in the design, planning, and construction of restaurants, office spaces, professional clinics, and retail spaces, Belvan can assist you from start to finish. Learn more by going to belvanconstruction.com.
Folks, golf season is just around the corner, and I don't know about you, but I am some kind of fired up over it. It's the perfect time to get yourself fitted for new clubs or some great new apparel. Well, DeBoers has you covered for all of it. Their facility is first class with amazing TrackMan technology in their simulators and top-of-the-field fitting specialists. You can order now for spring delivery, and they've also got a bunch of new 22 apparel for you to go check out. It's a fantastic group down there at DeBoers. The shop has a great positive feel. I highly recommend you check them out on the corner of 53rd Street and 99th Avenue. DeBoers, helping you play better golf since 1999. Average Joe's Sports Bar in Sherwood Park has proudly served the community and supported minor sports in the area for almost 20 years. It's a great gathering place for sports fans. Average Joe's has massive big screen TVs, comfortable seating, and a friendly staff waiting to make your experience anything but average. Come check it out on Baseline Road, right next to Home Depot, or make a reservation by calling 780-417-1113. That's Average Joe's on Baseline Road in Sherwood Park.
All right, time now for Who's Got Your Back, brought to you by DeBoers Golf Shop and Fitting Center, helping you play better golf, your local golf shop for the last 23 years. I was down at the shop earlier on this week before I left for the Stanley Cup final, and everything's in great shape down there. Rolled a few putts, spent some time practicing on the practice screen, the simulator's up and running, and they got all kinds of apparel and clubs, anything you need for your golf game. Check out DeBoers Golf Shop and Fitting Center. So happy to welcome in a familiar and friendly face, my good buddy, Dave Randorf. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good, man. Right in the middle of the Stanley Cup final. I know you're going to be right in the middle of it too. Listen, people need to understand our history. We were teammates together at TSN for, I think, what were we, 14 years? I think you and I ended up working together, something like that, or 12, 13 years. So run through your career. It was 97 to what, 14 you were with TSN?
Yeah, 1997. I mean, I started at TSN in the newsroom as a kid, like everybody else, when I was going to Ryerson, and I worked on the row. I did highlights for
That's right.
Sports Desk, and So then I went away and I got my first on-air job in Vancouver, my hometown.
Yeah.
Was there for a while and then was hired back by TSN to be a reporter. And then that gradually graduated into a studio host for a studio they had in Vancouver. I co-hosted Sports Desk from Vancouver.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Was Farhan there with you? Were you guys hosting together?
No, it was me on Monday to Friday, and then David Pratt did Saturday, Sunday nights, and I hosted it, co-hosted with Darren Detition and Mike Toth on the other end. Neither of whom I really ever met face to face. I mean, I certainly met Dutch later on in life, but Mike Toth, I think I met face. I worked with him for like 2 or 3 years every night, but only worked with him personally like once or twice. And then, that led to other things. TSN was awesome to me, giving me a lot of growth opportunities. Eventually moved to Toronto in 2001 and did a whole bunch of things there for them. Traveled the world because of TSN.
Oh, yeah.
Literally around the globe.
You were the world hockey guy there for a lot of years, man. You spent a lot of years putting on miles all over the globe.
All literally around the globe, all over Canada, to all little pockets of Canada, and then around the globe, China, Japan, Australia, all points in Europe. It was an amazing run. And then Hockey Night in Canada and Sportsnet came and hired me away, and was there proudly for 6 years. I look back fondly, very fondly, as sitting above the crowd on a Saturday night for 6 years. It's a thrill for a young broadcaster.
Sure.
And or maybe not so young, but anyway, that's all led to me being here in Tampa as the voice of the Lightning.
So it's 2 years now you've been doing games for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And it's funny, Dave, like that's the job people are supposed to retire to, is that Tampa job, buddy. But you nailed it at a pretty young age. It's a primo gig, man. And here you are, a couple Stanley Cups and a great job working in Florida. What was that life change like for you, buddy? I know you just picked everything up and had to go.
Yeah, it was all during COVID when everything changed for everybody, personally, professionally, all kinds of things going different directions. And this was one of them. And I remember watching, it was a long drawn out process. Everybody knew that Rick Peckham had announced his retirement.
Yep.
At the beginning of his last season. Rick Peckham was a Hall of Fame play-by-play voice here for 24 years. He was here. And is now a Foster Hewitt Award winner in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So at the beginning of that season, he had announced his retirement. So everybody knew in the league that this job was open. And I was a little later to the game throwing my hat in the ring, but threw it in there nonetheless. And long story short, it was a bit of a drawn out process because of the pause and COVID and then the bubble tournament and the cup. They won the cup in 2020. And I remember finally, around New Year's Eve of 2020, the call finally came, said, okay, you're our guy. We're going forward and we want to offer you the job. And it was great. And then I remember watching the gold medal game between Canada and USA, which USA won that night with Spencer Knights in between the fights. You were probably there. And then getting on a plane the next morning leaving my house, slipping down my frozen ice-covered driveway in the outskirts of Markham, Ontario, just outside of Toronto.
Knowing where you were going.
and I was back for like 3 or 4 months because I was leaving and I wasn't coming back until after whenever the next season was to start and end. And it turned out to be July. And then landing in Tampa, and here I was. And it was like, wow. And then, it's been it's been a wonderful ride and wonderful adventure. The organization, first and foremost, I am a team employee, so that's different.
Sure.
And, from any stage of my career, I've always worked for a network, but now I work for a team, and that's very different. And that's kind of fun, Ryan, caring who wins again. I've said this many times, before you as a quote unquote national broadcaster, you go into Edmonton, they're playing the Flames that night, you keep your call right down the middle or try to. And even then you're going to be accused of liking the Oilers or liking the Flames or hating both or whatever. Here it's very different. And so the organization is tremendous, from the top down. The owner called me within 2 days of my arrival here to welcome me into the family.
No kidding.
Yeah. So
That's
how many times that happens around the league for the team broadcaster? Yeah, 0.
Yeah.
Except for here. So I've just been welcomed with open arms. The fans who had known Rick for a quarter of a century have been very nice to me. So it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. My wife and I are adjusting to life down here.
What's it like living in Tampa Bay? Like whereabouts in the city? I mean, I've only ever really been in around the downtown area there, covering Stanley Cup finals and conference finals and stuff. But what's it like living in that city, in that weather? And how's the lifestyle there?
You have to remind yourself.
Is it everything I imagine?
Yeah, for the first 6-7 months, it's been about a year and a half that I've lived here full time now, and have a house here and everything. You have to remind yourself for the first 6 or 7 months that you are not on vacation, right, and that you can't go to the patio deck and drink beers every afternoon because it's 90 degrees and sunny. That would not be a healthy lifestyle. But beyond that, I mean, the weather is ridiculous. It can rain. When it rains, it rains. Yeah, and it's the lightning capital of the world, hence the name of the hockey team. But when it rains, it pours like mad for like a half an hour, and then it's gone. And then 15 minutes later, you wouldn't even know it rained. So the weather is certainly amazing. I live, for those who kind of know the geography of the situation, we're obviously on the north or central west coast of Florida, on the Gulf of Mexico. So I live closer to the Gulf, near Clearwater and Clearwater Beach, on the other side on the west side of Tampa Bay itself. Mm-hmm. I'm about a 25-minute drive over this bridge over the Tampa Bay, over Old Tampa Bay, which is a gorgeous commute. Yeah, a lot better than the one that I used to have in Toronto down the 407 or Don Valley Parkway in Gridlock. And it's definitely been a fun adjustment. And as I say, the lifestyle is. I miss the change of seasons. I don't miss the winters. I still look at my phone and say, oh boy, it's -30 in Edmonton.
You're going to get so soft. You're going to get so soft. No, you will. You can deny it, Rambo. You will be soft as butter.
Let me correct you. I am already soft. That transformation took place a long time ago.
I'm glad you could admit it.
Oh, no. I have no illusions. I honestly, and I've got no fear in saying this for all the Canadian viewers of your podcast, pretty sure I've lived in my last Canadian winter. No matter what,
wow.
The plan is, I'm not going to, I'll always have a home base in Canada. I'm a proud Canadian, but I don't know, man. I'm always going to keep one foot down here just because the weather, once you get a taste of it in the winters, you're like, I don't need that anymore.
Okay, I'll make you a deal. I'm not going to chirp you about that, but you always got to have a place big enough to have one extra bedroom so that we can come visit. And there's always a landing spot.
We have planned for that. We did exactly that. That was part of our conversation with my wife and I. And we wanted that exact situation. And that's what we've got. We've got a separate area of the house where people can come, and we're one end there, the other is perfect.
Right on. We'll get to game one in a minute here, Dave, but the name of the podcast is Got Your Back. As you know, we love asking people about a time in their life where, hey, someone did them a solid, somebody had their back. So I wonder, when I put that idea to you, who had Dave Randorf's back? Has something spring to the front of your mind?
Yeah, you know what? I gave this a lot of thought and I knew about the premise of your podcast. Congrats on your podcast, by the way. I've checked out several episodes, and it doesn't surprise me that you are so good at this and attracted so many great guests. So when I thought about it, when you open yourself up to that, it can really be, it's multi-layered. It's a great question because it can be somebody who means the world to you, or it can be somebody that just helped you out yesterday with something that was very important.
Exactly.
It's on all different levels, and you need to appreciate all of it and be mindful of all of it. There are special friends of mine that have always had my back, and I like to think I've got theirs as well. I'm kind of a private guy when opening up and telling a lot of personal stories, so I'm going to keep a lot as inside.
That's okay, buddy.
No, but it's okay. But I've got some others, and because there's personal things involved that I just hold tight. And but having said all that, you start thinking immediately about family, and my family. My boys, I'm very proud of my sons, Kyle, Blake, and Trevor, who you talked about living down here and everything like that, and they were, two of them were just here in Florida for Game 6 of the last round, and they said, "What do you miss, Dad?" I said, "I miss you guys." So, they got my back all the time, and very proud of that because I like to think myself and their mother instilled that in them. So anyway, and of course my father, my uncles, but if I was going to single out one guy. My grandfather on my mother's side was he was the first guy I have memories of really instilling a lot of confidence in me in a lot of ways and talking to me. And I can remember a lot of conversations with Grandpa John, an old Italian. He's born in Italy and just a wonderful man. And to say nothing of the grandfather I have on my father's side, but my Grandpa John, I'm going to give him a shout out along with my sons, Kyle, Blake, and Trevor. Sorry, I'm getting a little
it's okay, man.
Emotional thinking about it, but I said, don't do this when Rish asks you. And, one other group that I'd like to acknowledge, I know I've got a lot of friends who may see this and they know who they are, but three guys that probably are a little bit more relevant to your podcast because they have a TSN connection. You know how tight our TSN family was for me.
Yes.
Still is. That means there's so many people that yourself included, that mean a lot to me. But there was three guys that I spent a lot of time with for, I want to say 12 years when I worked on the Canadian Football League.
Yeah.
And I spent many, many a night and many trips to Grey Cups and what have you, living with Jock Climby, Matt Dunnigan, and the late Chris Schultz.
Yeah.
And each and every one of those guys they're way more than colleagues. They're friends that I laughed with and friends that I cried with. And they were there for each other. We were there for each other all the time, professionally, personally. I consider them all very, very good friends, including the late Chris Schultz. And one thing about Schultz, people who view your podcast and listen to your podcast knew him as this football analyst, this big, imposing 6'8" presence. And we all knew that's the obvious part of Chris. But
yeah,
the one guy that people didn't really know because he was hard to get to know in some ways. But once you got to know him, boy, he would wrap his big arms around you, whether on the phone or figuratively or in person, and say, hey, is everything okay? Chris understood football for sure, but he understood people. He was a psychology major when he was coming through the college ranks. And he could sense too, if you're giving him the BS answer, yeah, I'm fine, Schultz, I'm good. No, David, let's talk. And Chris was very intuitive like that.
Yeah, he was so special. Yeah, he really was. Yeah. And on a very small level, I got to experience a little bit of what we're talking about because, he would have always I was the intermission guy and the sideline guy. And, the odd Grey Cup I covered, I got to meet him. But I remember it had been a few years since I'd seen him. And I saw him at a Grey Cup. And he came up to me like, we'd been hanging out together every day. And I remember his handshake was just massive. And he was like, how you doing, Rye? He's like, it's so good to see you, man. I got to tell you, man, you do such good work. And we appreciate you so much out there. I know we don't get to see it. Like, I could not believe the way this guy went out of his way to make me feel like I was an important piece of the CFL team, even though I'm a bit player out in Edmonton, but he just went out of his way to make sure that I felt that way. Mm-hmm. And this is, I'll try not to get emotional. The one thing my late dad always said to us was, the most important thing when you're gone, what you leave behind is the way you made people feel. And Chris Schultz, I will never forget the way Chris Schultz made me feel. And that always resonated with me because that was such a strong message from my dad. He just had a way of making people feel good about themselves, Dave.
That's a perfect story. And those words that you just expressed there, I can hear them in his voice. Yeah. I can hear his voice giving those words. So that's what Schultz was. He had my back. Matt Dunnigan has my back. John Climby has my back. And shout out to those three guys because little did I know when I moved to Toronto from Vancouver in 2001 when one of my great bosses ever, Rick Chisholm, and company, Keith Pelly and everybody moved me out there. It was an undefined role that I had. They said, okay, we like what you do and we want to grow your role. And I was coming. My two sons that I mentioned earlier, two of the three, were just born and twins. And off we went. And I was about a month away from actually moving. And they said, so what do you think of hosting the CFL? We're going to shift things around a little bit. I think James Duthie was doing it at the time.
I remember this, yeah.
He was moving on to other things. And I had a long run there. And little did I know that those three guys I mean, some of the most enjoyable years of my life, because I think we all, yourself included, built something there. And secondly, the laughs we had were just the times we had in the studio, or when we were all together on the road at Grey Cups or Western Finals and all that kind of stuff. But, the personal connections I made with everybody in those three, especially because, like I said, we sat at that desk that everybody sees today for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
And the laughs and the chirps and the bonds and people.
And the bonds.
Yeah. People don't know like just how strong that bond ends up being when you sit there that much time together, and then it's go time and you all got to be on your game together. It really truly is like a team. For what it's worth, Rambo, I still consider you 1000% to be part of the TSN family. We're just loaning you out for the last 8 or 9 years. You've just been on loan, my friend. You're still one of us in my mind. Is that okay?
Yeah, that means a lot. It means a lot. It means a lot to hear that. That's nice, because those were very, very special years, and I keep touch with you. I keep touch with a lot of guys, and those were great years. TSN was a real tight-knit family.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things I really enjoyed about our relationship over the years is you and I, like, our kids are somewhat similar age, right? I've got, older teenagers now, and you and I have both tried to strike that balance in our careers of like being the dads that we want to be, but also having the career success that we want to try and have, right? And it's been an ongoing balance, for both of us over the years. And at times it's gone really well. At times it's been really difficult. But I always really appreciated our conversations, because when we got together, very seldom did you and I sit there and bullshit about hockey. You and I talked about fatherhood and parenthood and travel and life. And I just always found those conversations really meaningful.
Yeah. And people don't realize too, I can remember a trip that you and I were on together to a World Hockey Championship in Moscow.
Yeah.
And you are on, it sounds glamorous. And listen, there's an aspect of it that is, a lot of people will never set foot. I mean, now today it sounds a little different than it did back then in 2007. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people will never go to these places that you and I have been and get to actually live there for the better part of 3 weeks. But you are, in that case, you're literally on the other side of the world. Yeah. You're away from the day-to-day stuff in your personal life. And that's what people like you and I do. We go over there, we do our job, which we want to do and which we love to do. But we bond because, geez, what's going on at home today, Reach? Is everything okay with your kids? Everything? Well, this is going on. It's just all the regular stuff that everybody deals with. And as a broadcaster, and again, I'm not trying to I don't want any pity here. We choose this life, but it does come with some personal sacrifice, and you miss some birthdays. I missed a lot of championship ball games. My sons were all very good baseball players. Yeah. And, I missed some things that their championship weekends were always on Labor Day. And CFL, of course, I was never there because I was in that studio with those other three guys. Yeah. So whether you're, a plane right away or not, you're still not there. But that's how we strike that bond a little bit further. And I'm glad it's recognized, and I appreciate that it's recognized.
Yeah. It hasn't been perfect along the way, man. We've both had some pretty significant bumps, but
how do you not burst into tears every week when you're talking about this stuff with your guests? I was on the verge there. I've got it together now, but
it's all good, man.
Edmonton's Barbara Walters over there.
No, and that's all. We're not trying to. I mean, some people will be rolling their eyes. Probably a lot of people have turned it off already, and that's okay. You know what? Honestly, I do this because this is what I want to do. Like, and not all the stories are like that. Not all the conversations are like this. But honestly, Dave, like, I don't know. I love talking hockey, but I also love kind of being real and talking about life with people. And it's my podcast, and I flip and get to do what I want to do on my podcast. And this is what I'm choosing to do. So listen,
that is a perfect description of the reaction I had personally when I saw your social media and you said you're starting this podcast, saying got your back. I knew exactly who you are, and what you just said, I knew this is exactly the impetus and the reasoning for doing it. So congrats on doing it.
Thanks, buddy. These are the conversations I want to have.
The world needs more of this, buddy.
Yeah. Okay. Enough of this feelings garbage. This is silliness. Right. I would be totally remiss not to dive into the Stanley Cup final in Game 1. And only got about 5 more minutes here, but I want your thoughts on what you saw. You know this Tampa team as well as anybody, Dave. I thought they looked a little bit overwhelmed by the speed and the ferocity that was coming at them early, but they adjusted. What was your read on what Tampa put forward last night?
Okay. Let's start with the speed thing. Tampa Bay is not a fast team. They're certainly not as fast as Colorado. That's not to say they're a slow team, but they don't play that up and down. Like Nikita Kucherov, one of the most spectacular players in the NHL, he's never a top speed. Never. Yeah. And yet he can turn the game as he almost did last night with that spectacular, with that spectacular setup to Andre Palat. But there's a case in point, and you're never going to see any Connor McDavid speed. You're not going to see any Nathan McKinnon rush from Nikita Kucherov like that. He is more the maestro, and he will fake this way and go that way and leave you standing like he did to Devon Toews on that play. Devon Toews, a very good defensive defenseman.
Yeah.
So don't be fooled by the fact that maybe they're not keeping up with Colorado, because Colorado is a super fast team, and a lot of teams can't keep up with them. What they do well is something you mentioned. They self-correct. They make adjustments. And even while they did not play their best game, for whatever reason, they fall down early. They're down by 2 goals twice and 3-1 after the first period. They were right there in overtime. They were one shot away from winning that game and probably stealing it. I think the better team won last night. But overall, this is a team that is there. There's no panic. There's nobody in the Lightning meeting rooms this morning as they're getting together for breakfast or whatever they're doing right now. There's no panic in that room. They lost game 1 against the Leafs and looked horrible in that game. They lost game 1 against the Rangers and looked slightly better, but still not great. And they won that series too. They know how to adjust. They've got a lot of leadership and character and confidence in themselves. And they're very good at looking themselves in the mirror and say, okay, this has got to be better. Yes, their power play needs to start clicking here, but it's not like they're not getting looks. Yes, Vasilevsky let in one that he probably doesn't like, but anybody who thinks that there's all of a sudden holes in Andre Vasilevsky is just not paying attention to the body of work.
Fair.
It's like, stop with the hole. I think we got Vasilevsky on the run now. No, you don't.
Well, he let quite a few in against Toronto until he didn't. Until suddenly he decided, that's enough goals against now. I shall shut them out.
And that sounds simplistic, but that's essentially what happens. Yeah. And I've seen this movie before, and trust me, you don't got Vasi. He is going to come back stronger and better as this series goes on. And I just saw some numbers for his game 1s for whatever reason have been,
not
subpar, not great. But the rest of the games are spectacular.
Yeah.
He is the team itself is 19-1 after a loss in the playoffs the last 3 years, and he's got a big reason. I could drown you with Vasilevsky stats here, but I won't. I'll just say, just simmer down. And then they go, we got Vas. The big cat is, running scared. Yeah. No, trust me, he's not. So they will come back. They will readjust, and they will put forward against a better effort against a very good Colorado team. This is 2 of the best teams in the regular season over the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah, not just this year, the last 3 or 4 years. So this is a Stanley Cup final that is going to go back and forth. And again, I point to the fact that it's a 1-goal game. I thought Tampa Bay pushed back very well, obviously tying the game in the second period. And then, their game slipped a bit and they couldn't capitalize when they could. I think that, you talk about Vasilevsky, after he let in those 2 quick goals in a minute 30, I thought he pretty much did lock it down.
Yeah.
He did play very well, made some big saves. The third goal is a 5-on-3. So, this is going to be a 6-7 game series, and the Lightning are not going to go quietly. I've said this before, and I'm not wearing my Lightning underwear here. I'm just giving it to you objectively.
Sure.
Remember when we were kids and you're watching a scary movie and you're sitting there going, he's not dead yet. You're going to need to go back into that house and kill him again.
He's not dead yet, yeah.
Because he's going to come back.
Yeah.
And that's what, look at the Leafs. The Leafs had him. The Leafs had him down to the last 20 minutes in game 6.
Yeah.
They had a 1-goal lead going into the third period. They had him. The Rangers had him. They were up 2-0, and then 2-0 in game 3 in Amalie Arena. They had him.
Yeah, this team does not go away for sure. And you've seen it firsthand for a couple of years now.
Yes, and they're so close to history that they are not going to go without a massive scratching claw.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch. Dave, I love the fact that we did this, man. We were so overdue. So it's great to talk hockey and life with you. And beers are on the podcast when I get to Tampa Bay. How's that?
I look forward to seeing you. Bring your shorts and dry fits. That's the key. Don't just leave all your cotton t-shirts. I've got these great t-shirts. I'm a t-shirt guy.
Yeah.
And I never wear them anymore because they're, you just forget it. It's like,
doesn't work. Right on,
no.
Dave.
And can I give you 2 words of advice?
Yeah.
Gold bond. 3
Gold
words.
bond.
Gold bond powder.
Oh, for the sweating and the chafing and the
the boys and the whole thing. That's a tip.
I was not expecting that to wrap the podcast. Advice on how to keep the boys comfortable from play-by-play man Dave Randorf. I love it, Rambo. Look forward to seeing you soon, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing your story and spending some time with us today.
It's a great podcast. Congrats to you and a pleasure to be on with you, Reese.
All right, great stuff. Take care, buddy. All right, folks, that'll wrap up the podcast. Love that conversation with Dave Randorf. We're not afraid to get a little emotional here on Got Your Back. Why not? We can do 2 things at once. We can walk and chew gum, talk hockey, and talk emotions. Dave Randorf, truly one of the good ones. I miss working with him a ton. And I'm so happy I'm going to be able to see him here during the Stanley Cup final. That'll wrap up the podcast, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. Big thanks to our sponsors, DLR Vinyl Products, Park Mazda, Belvan Construction, DeBoer's Golf Shop, and Average Joe's Sports Bar in Sherwood Park. Tons of fun. We'll have another podcast in the following days, so subscribe, download. We're going to keep going here with the Stanley Cup final. Love being on the road with the pod. Stick with us, folks. Have yourselves an awesome day. Look forward to talking to you again really soon. Cheers.